I hadn't even made it 3 blocks before I realized I'd left my blood pressure pills on the bathroom shelf. The cab driver gave me a look in the mirror when I asked him to turn around, but I smiled like it was nothing. Just one more forgetful moment from an aging woman off to relax, right? The house was quiet when I walked in. I didn't call out, just headed straight to the cabinet. That's when I heard it. My son's voice, low and sharp behind the living room door. She won't come back. It's a one-way cruise. Remember, Linda didn't laugh. Not even a pause. Michael, she said, are you sure it's clean? No questions, no trace. She's old. If she goes overboard, nobody will blink. It'll be an accident, a tragedy. That's all. My heart didn't drop. It froze. I stood there, one hand still wrapped around the orange bottle in my purse. The pills rattled softly as I clenched my fist, the only sound I dared make. I didn't push the door open. I didn't scream. I didn't storm in and demand answers. I just left. Out the door. Down the front steps. Back into the cab with a thank you smile to the driver for waiting. Port, please, I said. My voice was steady. Because if that's how my son wanted to do it, cold, quiet, and final, then fine. We'd do it his way. But he had forgotten something. I am his mother. I am the woman who raised him through night fevers and eviction notices. I am the woman who pawned her wedding ring to pay for his second semester. He thinks he knows how this story ends, but I still have a chapter to write. The woman at the check-in counter beamed at me like this was the happiest day of my life. Welcome aboard, ma'am. First cruise. Yes, I answered, keeping my voice light warm. My son gifted it to me. Said I needed rest. She handed me the room key card with both hands, like it was some kind of honor. How thoughtful. If only she knew. I walked up the gangway with my small suitcase rolling behind me, the sound of it ticking along the metal ramp grounding me. I made eye contact with no one. Not the couple kissing under the banner, not the bartender pouring mimosas on the deck. Just kept walking, smiling, nodding, playing the role. My cabin was on the 8th floor. Ocean view, a private balcony. The kind of room you get when you're meant to disappear without fuss. I unpacked just one dress, the green one I'd worn to his college graduation, hung it where I could see it. Then I pulled out the recorder from my purse. It was small, sleek. I'd bought it 2 years ago when my neighbor was going through her divorce and had warned me, keep records, Darla. Always. I never thought I'd use it on my own son. I clipped it inside the lining of my purse, tested the switch, listened to the quiet hum of readiness. Let them call me sweet. Let them see gray hair and a soft smile. Let Michael think I'm exactly where he wants me. Because if I'm going to survive this trip, I need to be more than his mother. I need to be his mistake. And right now, I need to know who else is on this ship and whether they're watching me. I met Carolyn at lunch 2 tables over in the mid-deck bistro. She had the kind of posture that came from decades of putting other people first without letting it wear her down. Silver blonde hair, linen blouse, no wedding ring. Mind if I join you? She asked, gesturing to the open chair. It's either this or a table full of couples and shrimp cocktails. I nodded, folding my napkin. Please. She introduced herself as Carolyn Blake, a retired travel agent from Milwaukee. Widowed. 2 adult sons, both living in Arizona. We exchanged pleasantries, nothing that mattered. I kept my words light and polite, careful not to let my nerves creep into my voice. She tilted her head after the second course. You seem distracted. I blinked. Just not used to this much quiet, I guess. Carolyn didn't press, but her eyes narrowed slightly like she was filing away a note. You traveling alone? She asked, sipping from her iced tea. My son booked the trip for me. He said I needed space. Her lips pressed together like she'd heard that before. Well, if you ever feel uneasy, storm sea legs, or just bad vibes, my room's 2 doors down. 812. I'm a night owl. That stopped me. I studied her for a moment, unsure what she saw in me, a flicker of fear, or a woman holding her breath. Thank you, I said carefully. That's very kind. Carolyn leaned back. I've booked enough honeymoons and healing retreats to know when someone's not here to relax. Just know you're not the only person on this ship paying attention." She excused herself a few minutes later, leaving a clean plate and a surprisingly steady sense of calm behind her. Back in my room, I sat on the bed and replayed her words. I wasn't ready to trust anyone, not yet. But I was starting to think I wasn't the only one watching for cracks in the floor. By mid-afternoon, I'd walked every hallway of that ship twice. Restaurants, lounges, card rooms, spas, each humming with distraction. But what I was looking for wasn't on any brochure. Security cameras. And where they weren't, they dotted every corridor, blinked above every entrance, hovered near elevators and stairwells. Even the theater had 2 mounted behind stage left. But my balcony, my beautiful ocean-facing first-class balcony, had nothing. No blinking lights, no tucked-away lenses. Just a simple metal railing and the open sea. I stepped outside and placed both hands on the rail. It was sturdy, smooth, cool from the afternoon wind. If someone wanted to stage a fall, this was where they'd do it. One push, a faint scream, maybe a shoe left behind. By the time they realized I was missing, I'd be halfway to Cuba, and Michael would be halfway to my bank accounts. I went back inside and slid the door shut, pulling the latch tight. That evening I avoided the main dining room. I ate a sandwich alone in the bistro and watched couples toast each other with wine. They looked safe, ordinary. It made me feel even more alone. I was brushing my teeth when the phone rang. The cabin line. I wiped my hands and picked it up. "Hi, Mom." Michael's voice chirped too bright. "Just checking in. How's the trip so far?" "Lovely," I said, steady as glass. "The ship's beautiful. I bet you've already been out on that balcony, huh? Wide view." "Great air." I swallowed once. "Yes," I said. "It's my favorite part." There was a pause. Not long. Just long enough to wonder if he was smiling. "Well, enjoy every second. You deserve this." He hung up before I could respond. I stared at the receiver in my hand, heart ticking louder than the engine hum below me. He didn't ask about the food, the weather, or whether I'd made any friends. Only the balcony. The next morning, I found Carolyn sitting alone at the upper deck cafe, a crossword folded neatly beside her coffee. She looked up before I said a word. "You didn't sleep," she said. I sat down. My hands were shaking a little, so I folded them around the cup the waiter had just set down. The steam rose between us. "I need to tell you something," I said. For a moment, I thought she might smile it off, treat it like nerves or seasickness. But Carolyn just waited. Quiet, still ready. I told her about the phone call, about the way Michael had asked about the balcony, about the conversation I'd overheard and recorded when I went back home to get my medication before boarding the ship. And finally, I told her about the recorder now tucked into my purse. Then I pressed play and let Carolyn hear exactly what I had heard that day, my son and daughter-in-law's conversation in the living room, cold and clear, as if they were standing right in front of us. It wasn't loud, but it filled the space between us like smoke. My son's voice calm and calculated, saying I wouldn't come back, that it would look like an accident. When the clip ended, Carolyn didn't speak for several seconds. She looked out at the horizon, then back at me. "Do you believe he's serious?" she asked softly. "I know he is," I said. "And I know he didn't plan it alone." Her expression didn't change, but I saw something harden in her eyes. "You think your daughter-in-law's involved?" "I don't think," I said. "I know." She changed him. Carolyn took a slow sip of coffee. "Then we don't wait for them to act." I frowned. You're not alone anymore," she said. "If they've planned something, we'll plan better." She pulled a small notepad from her bag and began jotting down notes, names, times, small details. "For now," she said, sliding the paper toward me, "you act normal. You smile, you wave, and you let them think they're still winning." I nodded, my chest tightening around the quiet relief that came with finally being believed. For the first time since leaving home, I didn't feel entirely outnumbered. We went to the pool late that morning. I wore sunglasses and carried a book I had no plans to read. Carolyn chose a lounge chair near the bar, angled just enough to see everything. I took a seat at the water's edge, trailing my fingers through the cold ripples. The man was already there, green shirt, dark jeans, no swimwear. He wasn't watching the pool. He was watching me. Carolyn whispered, "Let's test him." She rose, gathered her bag, and wandered to the other side of the deck. He didn't blink, didn't shift his gaze. His eyes stayed fixed on me. When I stood to stretch, he adjusted his posture. When I walked toward the snack kiosk, he waited 30 seconds, then followed. Not close enough to be obvious, but not far enough to ignore. I looped back to the lounge chair. He returned to his spot a minute later, this time with a magazine he never opened. "He's not pretending very hard," Carolyn murmured when she returned. That afternoon, he showed up at the promenade in a yellow polo and asked me casually if I was enjoying the cruise. I gave him a polite smile and slurred slightly. "Too many mimosas at brunch. I'm probably not making it past dinner." He laughed. "You're traveling alone?" I nodded, eyes wide. "My son gifted me this trip. He's sweet like that." Nice of him. He leaned closer, dropping his voice like we were sharing something intimate. "What cabin are you in?" I blinked again, then smiled. "I always forget. I think it's 8 something. It's got a balcony though. Gorgeous view. Big railing." He nodded slowly, then tipped his imaginary hat and walked off. Carolyn joined me seconds later. He bought every word I said under my breath. "And now he knows just enough to do what he was sent to do," she replied, "but not enough to know what we're going to do next." We returned to the cabin and started planning for the night of the gala. The call came just after dinner. I was sitting by the window pretending to enjoy the view, while my mind kept replaying the man's voice asking about my cabin. When the phone rang, I almost didn't answer. But curiosity can be its own kind of armor. "Darla, hi, it's Linda." Her voice rang bright, sugary. "Michael told me you were having such a wonderful time." I pressed the receiver to my ear. "It's been peaceful," I said. Though I noticed something odd with the travel papers. There's no return ticket listed. There was a pause too sharp to miss. "Oh, really?" she said. "That must be a mistake. Michael handled everything. You know how those systems glitch sometimes." I'm sure I replied, letting the silence stretch. But I went ahead and bought my own return flight just to be safe. The second pause was longer. I could almost hear her swallow. "Oh, Darla, you didn't need to do that. We would have taken care of it." "Of course," I said lightly. "I just prefer certainty." She ended the call soon after, her cheerful tone cracking around the edges. I left the phone on the table, watching the light blink until it stopped. Later that night, another call came through, Michael this time. His voice was soft, careful, the way people speak when they're lying to someone who used to trust them. "Hey, Mom. Linda said you sounded a little anxious earlier. Everything all right?" "Everything's perfect," I said. "I even met a few kind people." "That's good. I just wanted to remind you the captain's gala is tomorrow night. Big event. You should go have fun, maybe dance a little." I smiled into the quiet. "I might. Afterward, just go straight to bed, okay? Don't wander out on deck too late. The sea gets rough after midnight." His voice had no tremor, no hesitation, just instruction. I told him I'd be careful, thanked him, and hung up. Then, I walked across the hall to tell Carolyn everything. Carolyn didn't hesitate. The moment I told her about Michael's call, she grabbed the folder we'd prepared, printouts of messages, voice recordings, even the ticket receipt showing no return flight, and said, "We're going to the captain. We found him in his office just after breakfast. Captain Alton, mid-50s, upright posture, the kind of man who looked like he'd seen too much to be surprised by anything." Carolyn did most of the talking. I handed over the printed itinerary and pressed play on the audio recording. He listened without interrupting. When Michael's voice came through, "Go straight to bed," after the gala, his brow tightened. But when Linda's voice cracked at the mention of the missing ticket, he leaned forward. "You have your own return flight?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "Booked it myself after the cruise office confirmed there wasn't one." He nodded slowly. "You did the right thing." Within an hour, he'd called in 2 members of his internal security team. They weren't dressed like officers, just tourists in polos and sandals. but their eyes were sharp. They'd be stationed outside my cabin during the gala blending in. Hidden cameras were placed in the hallway and on the balcony. And this, the captain said, placing a small red device in my palm, is a silent alert. Press and hold for 3 seconds, and my team will be at your door. Carolyn tucked the folder back into her purse. Thank you, Captain. He stood. I've been at sea 26 years. I've seen husbands push wives overboard for insurance money. Never thought I'd see a son try it. You'll be safe tonight. I nodded, but my heart didn't slow down until we left the office. Later that afternoon, Carolyn helped me prepare. I chose my green dress, the same one I wore to Michael's graduation years ago. I'd smiled then too. Now I was going to smile again. Just before we stepped into the elevator, Carolyn looked at me and whispered, "Ready?" I held the red light in my palm and answered, "Let's see what they try next." The gala glittered like a movie scene. Laughter, champagne music, drifting between the tables. Everyone looked golden under the soft lights except me. I kept my smile, steady eyes moving between faces, searching for the man who'd been watching me all week. He was there near the bar, wearing a white shirt now. No green, no yellow. Just white, like he wanted to disappear into the crowd. At 11:15, I stood and smoothed the skirt of my green dress. "I think that's enough for me," I told Carolyn. "Time to get some rest." She nodded, understanding the signal. We'd practiced this. I left the ballroom and walked slowly toward the hallway, heels tapping softly against the floor. 2 couples passed by laughing, heading to their rooms. I nodded, kept walking, then turned left past my own door and slipped into Carolyn's cabin 2 doors down. She was waiting. We turned off the main lights, leaving only the lamp by the bed. From her window, angled just right, we could see part of the hallway outside my room. We didn't speak. We just watched. At 12:07 movement, the man in the white shirt. He looked around, checked his watch, then knelt by my door. Even from a distance, we saw the shimmer of metal tools in his hand. "Lockpicks," Carolyn whispered. "He's going in." I reached for the red device in my pocket and pressed it. 3 seconds. A silent signal. The man slipped into my cabin, closing the door behind him. We waited, barely breathing. 2 minutes later, 3 security officers appeared, calm but quick. One signaled, the others moved in. Through the camera feed, we saw them emerge with him in cuffs. The captain arrived moments later, holding a phone sealed in a plastic bag. "Mrs. Quinn," he said, "it's full of messages from your son and his wife, dates, details, payment confirmations. Enough to bury them both." I felt the world tilt slightly, the ship steadying itself beneath my feet. Carolyn put her hand over mine, firm and steady. I exhaled for the first time in days. By morning, I would be back on land. The plane touched down in Charlotte just after noon. I hadn't slept. I'd watched the clouds break apart below us, a soft warning that the sky doesn't hold still for anyone. Detective Bray met me outside baggage claim. I handed him the thumb drive. "It's all there," I said. "Every word, every message, every lie." He nodded, opened the car door for me, and made one call on the way downtown. By the time we reached the district attorney's office, they were already watching the airport security cameras. An hour later, they had them. Michael and Linda were stopped at the terminal gate, 2 bags each, passports, a one-way flight to Lisbon. She cried. He didn't. I watched the security footage play back with a strange numbness in my arms. My son had packed more outfits than he had packed regrets. The prosecutor, a woman my age with iron in her voice, asked if I was ready to testify. I was. Court came fast. Michael's lawyer tried to paint it as a misunderstanding, a poorly planned vacation, miscommunication. But the messages didn't lie. The lockpicks didn't lie. The man in the white shirt, he didn't lie either, not once he was offered a deal. I looked Michael in the eye when I told the courtroom what he'd tried to do. I didn't flinch when Linda turned her face to the floor. They were both convicted by spring. By summer, I had sold the old house. Too many rooms. Too many memories with walls I didn't trust. I found a 2-bedroom near a creek in Asheville. It had no balcony. just a front porch and a lock that worked. On Tuesday nights, I teach self-defense at the Women's Center. Some of them show up afraid, some angry, some don't speak for weeks. But when they learn how to square their feet, how to take a hit without folding, I see it what I found at sea. The part of a woman that refuses to die quietly. And every week I walk back home, knowing that part of me's finally louder than the part that wanted to disappear.